Welcome to our class. This is Learning with Dr. Linda. We're going to be learning about planned change. We're going through a series of organizational change, management change, and we're going to be looking at the concept of planned change. And as we review the concept of planned change, we're going to be looking at different planned change models, reviewing the application of these planned change models, and looking at some of the things that distinguish one planned change model from the other. So we're going to look at the planned change, the models of planned change. Just a little bit of understanding of the concepts or understanding what we mean by planned change. Someone might wonder, are there changes that are not planned now that we are talking about planned change? And the answer to that question is that yes. The opposite of planned change is what we call emergent change. Emergent change, there are those things that happen probably from the environment. Say, for instance, this is 2021, and we're just coming from the year 2020 that was so different from every other year because of the pandemic of COVID-19. Now, most organizations were definitely affected. Nobody expected that there would be such changes, and those changes came and just shifted everything as we know it. Most organizations had not planned for that. Maybe they had planned for other things that made it easier for them to adapt to the new normal, but nobody really, not many, I imagine, had planned for a pandemic. I would be keen or curious to know whether even there was a company that had an insurance policy to cover the implications of COVID-19. I wouldn't be surprised that there is none, because that was a change that we could not have planned for. It was unexpected. So that's an example of an emergent change. However, organizations operate within relatively stable environments. Stable, sometimes there could be some uncertainty, but to the greatest extent, there is some level of stability and there's some level of predictability. And this is where the planned change theories come from. They believe that you can actually predict with some accuracy about what to expect in, say, 5 years. The planned change theories, they're the ones who advocate, especially for things like strategic planning, where you sit down and you do a strategic plan of 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, because you expect that in as much as there will be changes, that they will not be so disruptive and that they are predictable. You can sense, like now in the 21st century, we are already sensing the direction in which most of our organizations are going to be going to. We're going to have more virtual classrooms, for example. We're going to have more automated systems. We're going to have more people working from home, etc. And so an organization is likely to come up with a strategic plan with the trends that they have been able to see to make predictions of what is expected in the future. So the planned change model, we could actually say they are oriented towards the traditional models to change, the classical models to change, examples like Cutler wheel that came to be in the 1930s or thereabout, or even earlier. So they are more about how we can start with how change is introduced, how change is implemented or executed, and how change is sustained. Now, this planned change look at change as being purposive, calculated, and collaborative, or collaborative between different people within the organization. It involves the effort to bring lasting improvements in an organization through the assistance of a change agent. Lasting improvement. Whenever you hear lasting improvements, of course, some words that come to our minds are words like OD, organizational development. Whenever we think about organizational development, we think lasting improvement, and also we think planned change. Planned change, organizational development, they're sort of very similar. So these are a set of activities in an organization that are intentional and goal-oriented. Now, when we think about the change in a planned change model, and I think we reviewed the McKinsey 7S model, you can look and see there are similarities. Every organization has these three components, and every organization has the organizational culture or the shared values encompassing it all. Every organization has the structure. What kind of structures are there? The kind of relationships, the design, the spans of control. Then we have technology, the work processes, the work methods, the equipment. And then we have the people, the attitudes, the expectations, their perceptions, and their behavior. And all this is bound, or it is affected by what we would refer as the organizational culture. So whenever we think about the plan change model, we're looking at it from those four aspects: the structure, the technology, the people, and culture. Meaning, most of the theories that you've already covered, McKinsey 7S model, the force field analysis, the Cutler-Win 3-stage model, they are all examples of planned change approach because they take into consideration the structure, technology, people, and culture. Now, this is a model that I would want to take you through when a person wants to use the planned change approach. Now, this model is change management. The moment you look at this model, you're able to see how change is introduced, how change is implemented, and the outcome of the change, which we hope most of the time that it is effectiveness. The reason why we are bringing about this change is so that you can improve on our organizational effectiveness, our organizational performance. Now, the first stage, the first step in the plan change model is to identify the forces acting upon the change agent. If you've seen my video on force field, you realize that we have those things that either hinder the change processes or that promote the change processes. So when you're looking at the forces acting upon the change agent, we're looking at that. And these forces could either be coming from the internal environment or they could be coming from the external environment. That is very important to know. Now, another thing that is very important to know is that for a plan change to actually happen, it has to be deliberate. It has to be purposive. It has to be something that has been planned on. And for you to do that, you need a change agent. Now, a change agent could be someone from the internal environment or from, not internal environment, I'm sorry. Yes, from the internal, the organization, or you could outsource someone from outside. And there are advantages and disadvantages of either decision. Depending on the sensitivity of the information, depending on the amount of resources that you have, depending on the goal of the change, you can make a decision as to whether you need to have an internal person or person who is a line manager within an organization, be the one to lead the change efforts, or get somebody from outside, an external consultant, to come and lead the change effort. Another decision that you have to make is the extent of collaboration. We have just said that planned change is calculated. It is also collaborated. There's some collaboration. So you have to ask yourself, to what extent will you have this collaboration between the change agent and the members of the organization? Will the change agent work individually, unilaterally, coming up with their own ideas? Or will this person work collaboratively? And what is the extent? And that is where we have that continuum. So you can see the broken line down here, showing the aspect to do with the environment, because the planned change approach occurs within an open environment. And within this open environment, there are factors that are coming from the external environment that could actually be affecting the change agent's role. Now, once the change agent has been given the assignment, there are some specific questions they have to ask. Of course, there's the most basic question of why are we changing? Why? The why. Start with why. And the starting with why is where we have the forces acting upon the change agent. The triggers of the change are our why, the why we are changing. Now, once you've answered the why, the next question you need to find out is the what. What? What do we want to change? Do you want to have a change in the structure? Do you want to have a change in the systems? You want to have a change in the people, their attitudes, their perception? What is it that you want to change? And as you saw in the previous slide, the what to change can either be technological approach, where you're looking at the technology or the systems. Could be structural approach, where you're looking at the structures. Are you changing the organizational design? Are you restructuring? Are you adding more people into the organizational chart? What are you doing? Is it an issue of people or behavior? Are you looking into knowledge improvement, skills improvement, attitude modification? You have to ask yourself, what needs to be changed? What needs to be changed? Because once you've understood what needs to be changed, then you can select some intervention strategies. The next very important question you need to ask. So we've talked of why, what, then how. Of course, the how goes hand in hand with when. How do we change? And this is where now you identify a planned change model. If you're looking into individuals, maybe the issue you're having has something to do with change starting with individuals, you need to have outcome model as a specific technique for that change. Awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. If you're looking at this change from a group perspective, then Cutler-Win model may be what may be most appropriate. If you're looking at the open system, then maybe using McKinsey 7S model might be what is most appropriate as a way of changing. If it is a change that you're not sure of, and so you have to find out the limitations and the delimitations or the challenges, then force field analysis would be an appropriate. And even as you're thinking about how and when, you need to also ask the question of who does what? And this is where we are looking at the operational method, the power continuum. Who is responsible for what and when and how? Are you going to have an internal change agent? Are you going to have an external change? Within the organization, is it going to be departmental? Is it going to be organizational wide? Is it going to be a section? Who are the people? What's the role of the top management? What's the role of the line management? How much of the power is shared among the people, even with the change agent? And once you have identified all these things, you've answered these very critical questions of why, what, how, and when, and who, then of course you're expecting that there's going to be change. And of course, with change, you're going to have organizational effectiveness. Now, these are examples of the planned change approaches that we have. Excuse that. Yes. Now, we have action research, Cumming and Worley, and organizational development. These are examples of our planned change approaches. Of course, Kurt-Lewin is also a planned change approach. And as you can see from this slide, there are differences. There are things that are done in what you'd call unphrasing. Action research, you start with problem identification, consulting with experts, gathering data, then you get to the changing where you diagnose the problem, you do joint action planning, and then rephrasing, you do data gathering after action. And as you can see, there are different steps are involved. There are a lot of similarities, but also there are a lot of differences. But I also hope you're able to see that one of the characteristics of a plan change approach is that it relies a lot from specialists or experts. It also relies on empirical data. It also relies on empirical data. It involves the 3 steps: how change is introduced, how change is implemented, and finally, how change is evaluated. So whenever we're thinking about the steps of planned change, these are the steps: identifying the need, developing the goals of the change, identifying the change agent, whether internal or external, analyzing the organizational environment, selecting the implementation method, developing a plan, implementing the plan, follow-up, and evaluation. So this is a very, very structured process of planned change: identifying the need, developing the goals, identifying the change agent, analyzing the environment, selecting the implementation method, develop a plan, implement the selected plan, and follow up. I hope you can be able to use the planned change approach to be able to come up with better decisions about what you need to do whenever you have to do change management in your organization. Until then, I'm wishing you all a wonderful day. Goodbye.